Alexa, what day is it?
It's Tuesday, March 13th.
Alexa, what time is it?
The time is 9:11 a.m.
Alexa, turn on lamp 1.
Okay.
Hello, this is Linton again, and we're going to be talking about Mesopotamia. Last talk, I was giving you some data on voles and how the vole population in Europe follows a stereotyped pattern of damped oscillation over time. We saw that in the lab with fruit flies and in a computer simulation, but I have never seen it in humans. I imagine it may happen, but I've never seen any report of humans showing the same damped oscillation seen in voles and fruit flies and on the computer model. One thing people do notice and report is when an empire collapses. Civilization reaches a certain degree of development, and by civilization, all I mean is a whole lot of people working together, cooperating, doing something. But after a certain degree of development, barbarians come sweeping in, kill, loot, burn. So the language, culture extinguished until another civilization comes in and takes over and does basically the same thing, but with its own language and royal family and language and religion and so forth. Think about it. Original civilization has food, transportation, and a standing army. Just absolutely standard. They say in a battle, a attacking army has to have a 10-to-1 advantage for an invasion to win. Defenders get an automatic tenfold boost, more or less. Well, for an ancient civilization, an attack at a distance, things have to be even worse for the attackers. Food, weapons, discipline have to be maintained and carried along in an orderly way so that they can remain useful. You can't afford to have a lot of defections. Sanitation, health, very important. Probably more important than victory in the field. Probably more soldiers die of bad sanitation. Where's my cursor here? Than in battle. Not nowadays, but in old times, yeah, they get a moving army, they get a disease, sweeps through the army, and devastates it. Whereas if you can't get away, right? You wander off, and the others come back and punish you for desertion. But in the middle of battle, you might run away, yeah. So an invader faces a severe disadvantage, but it happens regularly. How is that possible? Well, one kind of data that you can put together and be pretty sure you're right is the date when the empire collapses. Lots of things change, the language, religion, and so forth, architecture, and so that gives you a date, the change over time. One civilization's gone, the next one rises, and that makes it possible for you to tell how long a civilization lasts. So I worked in Upper Mesopotamia. I looked at numbers for Upper Mesopotamia. No, Lower Mesopotamia. Sorry, Upper Mesopotamia is Syria, and I just don't know about Syrian politics. Lower Mesopotamia is a little easier to get at. Um, okay, got life's span of each empire in Lower Mesopotamia, broke it into 50-year increments, and then figured out for each 50-year increment, what's the chance of living another 50 years? So if it survived to age 50, what's the chance of surviving to 100? And if it survived to 100, what's the chance of going on to 150? Now then, and then that gives you a series of numbers, and you can graph them. So take all the ones that collapse between 50 and 100 and put them together, add them up, and so forth. Did make one little tweak. Well, it's a big tweak. Ottoman Empire. Initially, the administrators, general soldiers in the army, and the people who made it work were called janissaries. They were slaves from the Balkans, what used to be Yugoslavia. And then all the villages that had been sending in janissaries had population collapse. And so the janissaries themselves said, no problem. We know we're not supposed to get married, but we do, you know. And just make it hereditary. So our children, we've got children, and just make them the janissaries, and you'll run out. Well, that lasted quite a while. Eventually, the janissaries ceased to be important, and by the time they collapsed, there actually weren't any janissaries. But I counted as two empires: the Janissary Empire and after the janissaries became hereditary and then faded away. So I broke the Ottoman Empire in two. And when you graph it out, what you get is this. Okay, chance is virtual certainty of surviving the first 50 years, absolute certainty of dying out between the year 250 and 300. All right, you can look at this graph a long time. That's all of history. Yep, all of recorded history. Yeah, there were other things that have gone on in the world, but the first civilization was either in Sumer, in Mesopotamia, Lower Mesopotamia, or in Egypt. I don't know which, but about the same time. Older civilizations existed, but they didn't give us the good written records we have from Egypt and Mesopotamia. Egypt, they have dry climate and did a lot of carving with stone, and in Mesopotamia they wrote things on clay tablets and kept them. So we've got records going all the way back, and that's all the way back. You add it up, you get this line. So first off, this is an enormous amount of data. Second off, the line is very clean. Okay, what causes an empire to fall? As I said, an invasion is an unlikely single cause because it's so much harder to invade. Oh yeah, the empire can knock off a little village every now and then, but barbarians, villages knocking off empires? All right. Line is clean. If there were multiple unrelated causes for empires to fall, the line would be, there would really be no line. It would simply be a random scatter. Oh, it might, you're lumping data, so you might get an average of some sort. But you'd never get it this clean. Not with multiple random causes. Can only be one or two causes, max, right? So that's the first thing. Got a second thing. First, got a lot of data here. Second thing, we've got very clean data. We're only looking at one or two things. This is where I got the data. It's not a professional source. I just pulled the numbers off a souvenir chart, and I'm going to stick with them until someone can find a source that pleases them, because otherwise it's called data shopping. You keep changing where you got your data from until you get something please you. I didn't. I've always stuck with these same numbers. Um, uh, okay, so the smooth line, simple cause, a simple cause. Okay, if the things that bring down your civilization are outside, if it's overwhelming invasion, if it's climate change, plague that wipes out the population, that sort of thing, the time it takes for that to happen was unrelated to the age of civilization. And as I said, you might get an average, but it would be horizontal. Line wouldn't go up or down. It's whatever happens to the civilization happens because of something outside of the civilization. Okay, other things, maybe you've got the wrong kind of government, the wrong religion, the wrong genes, that sort of thing. Enormous amounts of interest in technology, or whether or not genetic makeup is important in people, and lots of people have opinions about religion. Um, uh, if the thing or things that take down a civilization had anything to do with that kind of stuff, line would go up. The wrong ones, who had the wrong religion or whatever, would die out quickly. Those that had the better religion or philosophy or government or whatever technology would last longer, and the line would go up. But the line goes down. All right, most expensive thing I have is not in my house. It's not outside my house. It's my house, right? Okay. So the cause of collapse isn't outside the civilization, be horizontal, isn't in the civilization or the population, the line would go up. It has to be the very fact of a big population working together and accomplishing things. All right, so let's see. Any civilization ages as it does so, it gets more and more likely to fall. As it approaches 300 years, chance of survival drops to zero. Now, I'm talking Mesopotamia here. That's not all that simple. And there's some information that's hidden on that chart we'll see elsewhere. But right now, at least as far as Western civilizations go, pretty much there's that 300-year brick wall. You can't outlive it. And the cause is just the fact that there's a big population. And the only way not to have a bunch of people working together is not to have a bunch of people. It has to be population collapse. Nothing else will account for the data we're seeing there. Um, yep, that's why doom. We, since we have absolutely no widespread knowledge of what's going on, um, we're doomed. Yeah, our technology will not help us because we don't know what the problem is. Well, I do, and I'm going to explain it to you, and I'm going to explain the mechanism of what's going wrong. Um, and next time we'll talk about other places where the same pattern is seen.